Welcome everyone to a freezing cold Sunday night wrap. Joining me in what seems like the icebox, my house anyway. Nicky and Macca, how you going, guys?
Warm as toast, I am, mate.
You got your little blanket going, mate, have you?
No, I've got the heater on, and it's everything's real cosy and lovely.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm sitting in front of the heater.
See, I'm in my back room and the heater doesn't go this far, so plus I got to shut the door to keep the bloody cats out.
Otherwise we're going to have meowing all throughout the cast.
All that sort of stuff. Apologies for the main break yesterday evening. Unfortunately, nothing to do with us. It was just apparently we live in a third world country that can't handle large amounts of data traffic at halftime, so we got exactly 1 second before it dropped out.
Nicely done. At least we got a second. It's better than nothing.
It was a real shame too, because I met I always forget his name, from the Crowbar as well, and he was going to come on and give his take as well. So we were standing in front of the Crowmania stand at the southern entrance there, looking like Dill's talking into a phone, and nothing was happening. Never mind. We'll, one day when Australia catches up with the rest of the world, we might be able to do it. It seemed like a good idea at the time, though. Anyway, without any further ado, let's go through the weekend's results. And, of course, on Thursday night, we had the Cats and the Power fighting out a bit of a classic. The Cats getting up in the end, 11 goals 15, 81 to the Power, 11 goals 13, 79. Famous for not only Dangerfield's cheeky little snap that won the game, but also Charlie Dixon forgetting what the time was.
Somebody's going to get a Cockwomling nomination.
That was unbelievable, wasn't it? Because it was so important.
How could you make such an error? And where were his teammates? Geelong were all over it, and probably fair to assume that his teammates just thought that he'd have a brain, but they won't make that mistake again.
The comment I'd like to make about that is that many a time you see the umpire, when the bloke marks the ball and is laying on the ground, blow time off, and then only start it once he gets up and starts walking back.
They don't always do it, though.
No, they don't.
They didn't this weekend at all.
No, it seems to be at random.
Yeah, but you'd only call time off if the bloke is hurt or if there's a bloke on top of him. That Dixon just took his time getting up, and I don't see why time off should have been blown under those circumstances. He didn't look hurt or anything. He just seemed like he was being casual about it, and I honestly believe he was trying to milk the clock down and just forgot what he was doing, to be honest.
I didn't say he should have, but I've seen it done many, many times, and it just seems to be just at random, and I think they should actually make a ruling one way or the other.
It's been a bugbear of mine for years, the fact that the whole timekeeping is quite arbitrary. Sometimes you watch the clock run down when it shouldn't, and other times the clock stops when you don't think it should, and I'm sure one or two games have been decided on some random timekeeping operation there, so at some stage they're going to have to tidy it up, but I don't think it's high on the agenda. Anyway, Friday night, another good game. Sydney just going down to the Hawthorn Hawks, 11 goals 9, 75 Sydney. Hawthorn 12 goals 9, 81. And that man again, Sean Burgoyne, although it was Ruffy to kick the winning goal, but Sean Burgoyne once again in the clutch, always comes up with the goods. He's an out-and-out champion.
Silk. I mean, they're raving about Buddy's game, but I think his game was just as influential. And for me, the whole thing is that what Roughhead did at the end was exactly what Dixon was trying to do, but Roughhead's clever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say is that you're quite right about Burgoyne. He has earned the title of Silk, and he just showed some of it, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he's a pressure game player, proven it time and time again, and it's his real signature to stand up in crucial moments. Saturday, we had the Bullies getting up over St Kilda 13-12-90 to 7 goals 8-50. St Kilda just going off the boil a bit over the last couple of weeks. But as we've seen over the course of the season, there are no orphans in that regard.
Yeah, well, it's a scraggy old game, really. But, the bloke up at 440, all of a sudden he became the hero again, and they started calling him the package again. It drives me nuts, that does.
I'm not that impressed with either of them.
No, the Bulldogs don't look convincing, and St Kilda looked good early in the season.
They tire.
But they've really come off the boil.
Because their game plan is so much involved about their run, and those young bodies can't quite do it yet to the level. Once they come up against the good teams that actually can run with them and will keep pressuring them and making them run even more so, that's when they're getting in trouble.
Yeah, St Kilda weren't quite good enough to keep it up all the time, Nicky. You're quite right. Where the good side will pressurise them out the game.
Yep. Up in Darwin, we had Melbourne getting up over the Suns. Melbourne 18 goals, 14-122 to the Suns 13-987. I didn't watch the game. Did any of you guys? Mackie, you would have watched it.
No, I couldn't stand it. I didn't watch that one.
There was the SNFL on.
Bloody hell.
No, guys, I did start to watch it and I thought, oh my God.
Well, the Suns were up for a long period of that game, weren't they? If I was reading, I remember rightly.
Yeah, but to be honest, I watched a little bit over a half. But once you could see the Suns dying, I thought, I'm not going to watch their death.
Dreamtime at the G produced another good one, although I didn't see it. 11 goals, 15-81 to Richmond, beating Essendon 10 goals, 6-66. And Richmond, by all reports, just getting up at the end of the match, really.
Yeah, the one game for the weekend I didn't actually see any of, but it obviously was a very good game.
And Richmond finally won one. When they were, 2 goals up, or one goal up with 2 minutes to go. In our group where we sit, we have somebody who's a Crow supporter, but is also a Richmond supporter. And so we were basically giving him shit at that particular time. Are they going to do it? He's with us. He thought, nah.
When they were only one goal up, I said to Mrs. Mack, I said, Richmond can do this. And she said, what, win? I said, no, lose it in the last minute.
And today we had the Maggies continuing their good recent form. 18 goals, 21-129 to the Lions, 13 goals, 684.
Not
convincing by all accounts.
No, I wouldn't use the word good form. They won it, but if I was Buckley, I would be overly happy with them because Brisbane are a bunch of scrubbers and. They win the game. No, they are, and yet they were. They made a real game of it, and Collingwood they're not going very, very far this year.
As has been proven this year, though, Macca, a win's a win. So
correct.
I'll take the 4 points and move on. I reckon.
Yeah, you put in the bank and say thank you.
Yep. North Melbourne got up over Carlton, 17-11-113 to 15 goals, 696. Tipped Carlton then. I thought they might get up, but North obviously too good.
Well, they were twice. They were 45 points up, and then Carlton decided, oh look, let's play some contested footy. So they did. North stopped, and then the last quarter, North were like, oh, maybe we should play football again.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know what's wrong with the big boy in their ruck at the moment. Cruiser killed him, absolutely murdered him.
God's been off for a while. Is a shadow of his All-Australian self. I don't know what the story is there, but...
And I kind of couldn't get the commentators. They were just going on and on about what a great game Gibbs was having. Yes, he kicked 3 goals, at one stage, and they were talking about... But he'd only had 20 possessions. For a guy that's in your midfield, that's poor.
Not high numbers.
No.
And the last one today just recently finished. The Giants getting up in a pretty good match by 8 points. Greater Western Sydney 14-98 to West Coast 14-6-90. West Coast don't often lose at home.
Kennedy might have done an Achilles by the look of the way he went down.
Yeah, it didn't look that good.
It's the first time that GWS have ever beaten the West Coast. And
that was their final team they needed to beat.
Yep, and it completes a lot now. But in fairness to GWS, they had always we know Scad's out. I'm not sure how many it is, whether it's 12 or 15 or whatever it is, but a lot.
It was 8.
Well, no, on the TV they were talking like, almost something you need loaves and fishes for, and that many. They were talking. They were talking in the teens at least.
Anyway, that leaves us with a ladder seeing the Crows and the Giants equal top on 32 points. The Crows a fair way ahead on percentage, though. On third spot, we've got Geelong on 28 points. Then we've got the Bullies, Richmond, the Weagles and Freo on 24. Port on 20, but obviously they've already had their bye. And then out of the 8, we've got Melbourne and St Kilda along with the Bombers on 20 points, Collingwood and North along with Hawthorn on 16. Swans just about did their season this week, I reckon. They're on 12 along with the Suns and the Blues, and the hapless Lions on 4 at the bottom.
Just on the Swans, I thought they tried to be too tough from the start, and that just kind of fell into Hawthorn's game plan, or the way that Hawthorn play, that they absorbed that kind of pressure.
Paul reports there was a fair focus on from within the Swans playing group to toughen up a bit over the last couple of weeks, and you're right, Nikki, they may have just misdirected
just went
it
the wrong
somewhat.
way.
Yeah,
like Tippett trying to do a push and shove. It's just, dude, no, it's just not you. Stop it.
Tippett actually cost them their chance of winning the game too.
Yep, and a few people are pointing that out, that he's on so much money and he's been an absolute bust for them.
Oh, he's
bloody.
Sorry,
he's a liability. I was just going to say, he's a bloody liability, quite frankly. When he doesn't play and they put their B grade ruckman that they get from other clubs, for a fourth rounder or whatever, they do a lot better than Tippett does.
Yeah, well, Tippett's like one of those speculative stocks, Macca, that you buy and they tank. Because the only value they've got with Tippett now is on the trade table, and he's not worth the pittance compared to what they paid for him. So,
because he's going to want big money. He's going to think he's worth big money.
If I was a believer in karma, I'd say, there you go, Sydney. I'm not, but I'm still laughing at him.
I actually understand that example you gave. I've got one of those stocks.
Yeah, I've had one or two on my time. Anyway, on to the game that we all give a rat's about, and it was the Crows just squeaking over the line against the Dockers. 20 goals, 23, 143 to the Dockers, 6 goals, 743. Raise the bat, Crows win by 100. I went, it was the worst rain that I reckon I've ever seen in a football match in that first quarter.
That was shocking.
So I publicly want to thank Mrs. Mack for getting crooked, so we couldn't go.
Oh, we were sitting in the top of the Western Stand and we were still getting drenched. It was ridiculous. But good to see the Crows get off to a good start and play 4 quarters of football. And the funny thing is too, I was looking at the heat map of all things just before. And it's the first time I've ever seen a heat map where one team's actually had the red part of the map in their forward line. Usually it's across the middle or across half back, but
that's where it was.
Our forward 50 is basically red. Never seen that before. And it shows in all the stats, obviously. 72 to 40 inside 50s in the end. That probably flatters Fremantle because... what was it, 19-1 in the first quarter or something like that? It was just crazy stuff.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Anyway, sorry, go on, mate.
I was just going to say, though, I will say this, it may have been, it is the heaviest rain I've seen in an AFL game, I think. But I was amazed at our skills in handling the ball.
Oh, well, that was a feature for mine, and I certainly wanted to touch on that when we got into talking about it, because I was so impressed by our skills at ground level and our cleanliness with the ball, and our ball movement by and large under the circumstances was exceptional. Best I've seen for a long time.
We really knew what Ross wanted to bring, and I thought there was a very conscious counter game to that, and when they tried particular styles, and they really did try some flooding, we didn't get sucked in to it.
Yeah, well, we're only talking the basics, Nikki. Like picking the ball up off the ground when it comes flying at 100 mile an hour, actually taking it in the hands and not fumbling it, and the kicking. I was amazed. I thought our skills. You think of the goal that Miller got, for example. The one that he kicked with his left foot in the first quarter. I mean, that was a classic example of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's quickly run through some stats. We obviously outpossessed them quite substantially by 100, actually, 435 to 333. Not surprisingly, we went at about 1.5 to 1 kicks to handball. Under normal circumstances, you'd almost think it was going to be a 2 to 1 situation, but we did use the ball quite well by hand. And as we just mentioned, we're very clean. We just played keepings off, 93 marks to 52, a very pleasing stat, 83 tackles to 73, notwithstanding the amount of ball we actually had. Source did very well in the ruck, winning 49 to 34. Frees were even, although I thought the umpires had an absolute mare, to be honest with you. Oh, God,
did they what?
Wow, just dumbfounded by some of the frees that were paid. What else have we got here? We've got inside 50s, as I mentioned, 72 to 40, and that sort of evened up a little bit as the game wore on, but early it was completely dominated by the Crows. Outpossessed them in the contested stakes, 177-139. We also had 255 to 173 uncontested possessions. A very pleasing 70% disposal efficiency under the circumstances.
In that weather.
That's amazing.
Exceptional. That equates to about a 90% in the dry, I reckon.
Yeah.
Can we actually highlight Wayne Miller with 88%?
Yeah, fantastic. 11 contested marks to 5, 13 marks inside 50 to 2. Very pleasing. 41 clearances to 36. And that was the tail of the tape, really. We also, our tackles in forward 15, 19 to 9. Now, given the fact that the ball was in there as much as it was, but I think that was a very large contributing factor to the way we held field position for large portions of the game. We just didn't let it out of the forward 50 easily at all. And most pleasingly for me was our centre clearance work, Macca. What did you think of that?
I loved it. I thought the Crouch brothers worked in tandem very well together. Matty Crouch is becoming, in my opinion, becoming an elite midfielder because he. I said originally I thought he'd turn into another Matt Priddis. Well, no, he's going to be better than Matt Priddis because Matt Priddis is a great accumulator of the ball, but never been a really great user of the ball. And what I liked about Matt's game was the fact that not only did he get the inside ball, he's starting to get outside ball and he's starting to use it very well. And I just think his game is expanding at a rapid rate. And there was improvement in Brad, but he's going to have to catch up to Matt now because Matt's ahead of him.
I was standing next to a guy in the third quarter who had money on Brad to get highest leading disposal count. And at that stage, Brad and Matt were neck and neck. And I said to him, I don't think you're going to make it, mate. And Rory pipped them both in the end. Rory Atkins.
I'll tell you what, Rory Atkins, he played a very good game. But Rory Sloane, I loved his game. It was rough, it was tough, it was skillful. It had every element of our game in it. And he's not a big man, but he just took them on. He just physically took them on. He's a marvel.
For me, what happened there, and this is actually going to bring Matt into it, is that even though they sent, I think it was Buckley to Sloaney to tag him, Matt would then be the one to block and provide that around the stoppage. So he actually sacrificed his own game a little bit there. And yet he was still able to accumulate so much. And because the second quarter, they then let Rory off the leash, and that's what he did. But Matt was still doing what he was doing. So they then moved the tag onto Matt in the second half. He didn't drop his head. He didn't have the same amount of possessions, but by God, he was still doing the team stuff with the blocking, and that's what impressed me so much about his game.
Yeah, last couple of games, and whether it's a coincidence or not, but after Sloaney mentioning that he's been working with the midfield coach and Scotty Thompson on how to break tags, they've just been a little bit more creative. I noticed Rory at various stages going to Fife to try and create a 2-on-1, which did free up Matt quite a bit, and I thought that was a good tactic, and they're not just letting Rory play 1-on-1 now on a hard tag. Not that last night's was a hard tag, but he still had a bloke running with him. So, all good. Let's run through some individuals. And Rory Atkins, 24 kicks, 13 handballs, 6 marks, 4 tackles, 5 inside 50s, 11 contested possessions. Only went at 62, but that's not bad considering the night. 4 clearances, 5 rebound 50s. I thought he's had a slow start, Rory, but he did work himself into the game, after quarter time.
He's a very talented individual, and we saw a lot of it on Saturday night. My only one criticism is that he at times still hangs onto the ball just a little bit too long.
Yep.
And then the lead that was there gets covered, and then he's got to look for another one, which means he's got to hang on to it longer than he should. And that's probably the only criticism of his game at the moment, because he's going in harder for the ball. I didn't see him squib one effort for the ball. And I think that if he actually did dispose of the ball just a little bit earlier, he probably would have a higher efficiency rating too.
I have to say, if we're going to continue on with what we discussed on Tuesday night with him being only half the footballer he is with half the hair colour, he's now only got probably a quarter of the hair colour, so it's back to 75 brown and about 15% blonde. He was about 75% of the footballer.
See, it's those sort of comments, Nikki, that put us at the cutting edge of football analysis.
Totally. It's all to do with hair colour.
Yeah.
Well, you guys get your little bees in the bonnet regarding man buns.
Yeah, and he may have taken my advice to do the scrotum and the underarms as well. And
Macca, come on. Sunday night, come on. All right. Matty Crouch, 35 touches, 18 and 17, which was very pleasing because that's the type of game that you might expect Matt to handball at 630 times. 6 tackles as well, 5 inside 50s, 13 contested, went at 63%, 5 clearances as well. I just felt like in the first half in particular, when the game really, from the first bounce really, when the game was there to be won, Matt did a power of work along with his brother, and I thought it was probably the best game I've seen from him for a while.
Yeah.
You mean Matt's game?
Yep.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just think though his last 2 games in particular, he's on an upward trend, I reckon.
Yeah, his game is changing somewhat, although he had more contested possessions last night, probably because of the conditions. The only caveat I would put on Matt's game is that the conditions did bring the game back to his speed. Obviously, a wet night is right in his wheelhouse, given his upbringing and where he was raised. But you can only play as well as you can play, and I thought his was an excellent game. Rory Sloane, 17 and 13 for 30 touches, 5 marks, 2 goals, 1, 13 tackles if you don't mind, 5 inside 50s, 17 contested possessions, and 8 clearances.
And 3 Brownlows.
Well, between him and Jake Lever probably, but it wouldn't. He would certainly deserve 3.
Well, considering I'm watching Bounce at the moment and Danny Frawley's doing his defenders thing, he gave it to Alex Rance as the one on the league. Lever didn't even make any 3, and when they showed the highlights of the spoils and everything else, they only put in one of Lever's, and they had in these other Smothers and stuff, and I'm like, seriously, dude, did you watch our game?
Jakey Lever's another one where if he was in Melbourne, they'd be all over it. Anyway, we're talking about Rory. Come on. We'll get to Jake.
Okay.
Sloaney, I thought he's just a powerhouse, isn't he? He can't keep a good man down, and now that he seems to have started to work out this whole tagging caper, he's doing very well. And he is, You're seeing him in more parts of the ground over the last couple of weeks, I reckon, Macca, as well. He is trying to break that tag with a little bit of pace and run.
He's working his arse off all around the ground. Yeah, he's in defence, he's in the middle, he's up forward, he's everywhere.
Love to know what his GPS numbers were, and he was on the ground for 80% of it as well. Yep, Bradley Crouch, probably the best game for quite some time from Brad, and it's nice to see him starting to look a little bit more comfortable at the level. 12 kicks, 18 handballs for 30 touches, a couple of marks, 6 tackles, 6 inside 50s, 16 contested possessions, went at 67%, and 8 clearances. Best game for probably since his foot injury, I reckon, Macca.
Yeah, he was supposed to be our answer to be the clearance king, and he certainly he lived up to what he's being asked to do. He did that against them. I mean, admittedly, the opposition wasn't that great, although when you look at the quality of what their midfield and the players that were there, normally you'd say they were very good players, but they were made to look very ordinary.
Yeah, and we'll get to a bit of a comment about that in a minute, but you're right. There's a asterisk next to this game, I reckon. Jakey Lever, though, doesn't need an asterisk. 20 kicks, 9 handballs for 29 touches from half-back, if you don't mind. 11 marks and probably twice as many spoils. 6 inside 50s, 7 contested possessions. Went at 82.8%, which is excellent for Jake. Notwithstanding that stupid little outside.
That one little dinky one that just slipped off the side. Didn't quite get that.
I don't reckon it slipped off the side. Oh, he actually pulled it because when I was watching the replay, you could tell there was nothing in front of him, and I reckon he's looked up halfway through his kicking action and gone, oh shit, there's nothing there. But he pulled it and it went to shit. But it was his only blue for the night. 6 rebound 50s as well as 8 1%ers, 86% time on ground. Can we just sign him, please? Hurry.
He is. I think he's even more of a priority than McGovern.
Oh,
I think they both are.
I hate to split him, Macca, to be honest, because I think we forget how well Mitch started this season. But certainly, 100%, Jake Lever is fast becoming our most damaging defender. And with the 2 lockdowns in Hartigan and Talia, to have a bloke like Lever. And I'll tell you the other thing that happens with Lever, Jake Kelly grows a leg as well.
They work so well together.
They do work well together. They look the same, but I reckon Kelly looks at Lever and almost, uses that as a bit of a guide of how to play half-back. And I thought, even though Jake didn't have half as much as the ball, I thought his game was also good. But Jakey Lever, he won't be in All-Australian calculations because he lives in Adelaide, but should be.
Yeah, look, you just explained the very reason why I rate him higher in importance to us than McGovern, because I think that he takes our whole defence from one level to another level because of what he gives that the others can't give.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed, Macca, is that when Lever's in the team, or let's go the other way, when Lever's not in the team, our other interceptor, Rory Laird, is required to do more in the air, whereas when Lever's playing, Lairdy can be just that ground ball mopper-upper, but he doesn't have to get up and intercept mark as much, and I think it also has a positive impact on Lairdy as well.
Yeah, if you actually watch Lever, actually for a backman, he covers quite a bit of ground to make those spoils. He's not frightened to go from one back pocket to the other back pocket, or from the back pocket up to half back flank to give it an almighty thump. So he to me he's a kingpin in the back line.
I actually like one of my favourite moments was him not actually getting the spoil. It was Hartigan instead. But what Jake did was, he could sell, because he was actually at the contest, so he couldn't get the run and jump. But he could see at the corner of his eye that Hartigan was coming. And he just did the little push, the little block to keep him back, which enabled Hartigan to get that timing of the jump. He did the big punch over thing. And, of course, as they're running back, they just both give each other a little high five. And that's the type of player he is. He's not always loose. He's the one who will push up. He was on McCarthy at some stages. Mm-hmm. So he can defend one-on-one, but we kind of switch around as we need.
Now, Nikki, I'm going to give you a Cockwomble nomination if you don't fix that microphone cord up. The other thing I like about Lever is that old school notion, Macca, that if you stuff up, go and clean up your mistake. And every time Jake Lever makes a blue, you see him charging at the next contest to make amends.
Correct. The only one he couldn't correct was that dirty little dinky thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but a couple of times he made a blue, and then you could see him, try to follow up with the big spoil or something, or an intercept. Excellent game from Lever.
To me, he is the complete backman because he is absolutely mobile. He can leap and he takes fantastic marks. He's got great hands, and he seems to have very good judgment when to mark or when to spoil. And he's not frightened to have a little bit of a run with the ball either.
I'll tell you what else I notice about him, Macca, is that he does the old Nathan Bassett punch from the front. Remember how Bass used to come in from the side and almost be like looking backwards and just sticks his fist up at the right moment and punches it away? Lever does exactly the same thing.
There's a real art to that because, he touched that
hand. It's the timing.
Free.
Yeah. Very good. Rory Laird, despite having a period there where he just actually couldn't kick the ball.
He was not allowed to kick the ball.
Well, he couldn't actually kick the ball straight.
Kept bloody going out in the full. We had a rule. He was not allowed to kick it. And at one stage, I forget, one of our players had it and he was running past. They just kind of looked at him and went, I'm not giving you the ball. No.
He still had 15 kicks and 12 handballs for 27 with 3 marks. Couple of inside 50s, 11 contested posies, went at 70%, surprisingly. Oh, dear. And 5 rebound 50s. Another solid game from Rory, I thought.
Yeah, he started off a little bit slowly by his own standards, but he sort of, and he did make those errors, but he sort of built a game, and as the game went on, he just got better and better.
Yeah. Of the rest, I thought Andy Otten was a revelation up forward, Macca. He is a smart player, knows where to put himself, and was hanging on to those marks, and showed Josh Jenkins what you need to do as a centre-half forward.
Josh doesn't play centre-half forward.
No, he doesn't. No, you're damn right he doesn't.
He actually played quite nicely.
Yeah, I know. I'm just taking the piss. But Andy played excellent, I thought.
He did.
Andy's amazing, isn't he? The conditions were his conditions in one way because everybody's not too quick. And Andy isn't a speedster. But his judgment of where to be and very good hands in the wet. I thought he played an excellent game, and he's having a rebirth, really. And when we've got everybody available, I'm just not sure where he's going to slot then. But, he's given us real value wherever we put him.
For me, my favourite moment was that mark he took with 5 Fremantle defenders around him. Yeah. And only one went up and the rest are looking at him going, oh, shit, we're going to be in trouble for this.
Yeah, I think it was one of the Hill boys that went up in the end and the rest of them were just standing around.
I think it was Stephen.
And he's just plucked it. It was a good game from Otten. And, it's one of those really good stories. And I think it's, again, one of those situations whereas if he was in Victoria, that'd be, he'd be getting Daniel Menzel type accolades.
Yeah.
Because, 2 Ricos and such a long time out of the game.
And to come back and play with the joy that he is.
Well, not only that, he's playing a different position.
Yeah.
He's always been a backman, well, certainly in his AFL career. And he's come back and he's made a position his own. And, Mitchy McGovern is going to have to, because that's the spot that Andy's got right now. Mitchy McGovern's going to have to certainly provide similar levels of output if he wants to displace Otten. I mean, Andy had 11 kicks, 6 handballs, took 8 marks, kicked 4 goals, 4 tackles, a couple of inside 50s, 9 contested posies. Taking 4 marks inside 50 on that sort of a night is invaluable, and slotting them as well certainly makes a difference. So, when Mitch comes back, he's got his work cut out.
I thought Nikki raised an excellent point there when she said that the joy that he plays with. Because he does. Most players are playing with intensity and looking like they're under the pump, but he looks like he's having the ball out there.
You just kind of think he's playing as if every game is a bonus, and he's just happy to be there, I reckon. You mentioned Josh Jenkins. I thought it was a pretty solid game from Jenkins without being outstanding. 11 kicks, 3 handballs, 7 marks, 6 tackles, 9 hit-outs as well in the ruck. He kicked 3 goals. What else? He went at 78% disposal efficiency, which is good. Probably, conditions not really suiting a big man, and he certainly made a better fist of it than our other key forward.
No criticism of him this week. I love the fact that Pikey's got the message through to him. You're not going to be in the team if you don't work, and it was good to see him working hard to get down back when we needed a man to play loose at times to pick up so that we could cross the ball across and switch the ball and switch directions. And I actually thought he had a reasonably good game. At least you could see the guy was trying.
Yep.
I quite liked his ruck work. I thought that was really well. That was back to the best. And at one stage, he got a hit early on in his rib area, and he kept going. I think that was the confidence of, the pain's not there.
Yep.
He did get another hit a bit later that took him a little while to get up from, but he stayed out there after that, which was really good.
Well, irrespective of my personal views on Josh, if he's going to be out there, he may as well play well, and I thought he did his role on Saturday night. Other cameos, I mentioned before, Jake Kelly. Luke Brown, I thought, was pretty solid in defence. But if you're going to have 5 bounces down the wing, Luke, and you get to the 50, for God's sakes, don't pass it off. You're a backman. You've got to have a ping, especially when we're 80 in front.
Correct.
Very disappointed in the effort there at the end, but it was a nice little run. Wayne Miller, particularly early, I thought was excellent. Put his body in. 11 kicks, 5 handballs for 16. Took 5 marks as well, and also 4 tackles. Probably the strongest game I reckon we've seen from Miller.
Yep, and he's got oodles of skill, and that really showed up with the wet ball. He handled it very, very well.
Yep. Lots of one takes. Eddie was Eddie. Almost.
Just on Miller.
Oh, go on.
It's just something I said it on the board, but it was my dad kind of pointed it out, and there was a stoppage near where we were. They were standing next to each other and they're walking. They walk exactly the same. They're the same height and exactly the same body shape, the physique. They were like clones, the pair of them. Miller and Brad Hill.
Ah.
That's bloody nice to have.
Well, if he comes on as much as Bradley Hill, that'll be handy.
Yeah.
Eddie Betts tried to take Mark of the Year 600 times. Probably not the night for Eddie. A bit slippery.
If anybody could do it, it would be him.
Yeah.
But he was still clever about it. Because there were a couple of times he could have gone and then he saw that somebody else was in the better position. So there were those 2 little roving. The first one, which unfortunately was a point, but that's what he's still clever enough to do it. So people are like, the club should be stopping him doing it or whatever because we gave away frees. He's still smart enough to know when it's the best. He's going up when it's his turn to go, if he's in the best position, and if he's not, he doesn't.
Yeah, I didn't think it was Eddie's greatest game. But having said that, he ended up with a handy 3-goal too. And the other one thing about Eddie, he scares the absolute living daylights out of his opponents. That they make errors and they're not sure what to do. And I think he just causes chaos. And as a result, that other players in our team get goals.
Yeah, that's a fair point. The one thing I will say about Eddie flying, and I have no bias against small forwards flying. But not only does it cause a bit of a mismatch at ground level, but it also takes Eddie out of the play at ground level. He's usually when he goes up, he falls flat in his ass when he comes down, which means that he's not in the ground ball contest, and it's left to our bigger players. So I don't mind Eddie going when he's outnumbered and it's his only option. But in pack situations or when our key forwards are there, I'd prefer him to stay down. Just my opinion.
We did have the irony in one situation where Eddie flew over the pack, on top of the pack, come off hands, and Jenkins
Jenkins
and kicked the goal. Yeah, it's sort of a roll.
That was one of those. That was one of those moments. Eddie was the closer one. Jenkins wasn't close enough, so Eddie
Jenkins
went.
Was front square. And that was all right because Eddie was in position and there was no one else. A couple of times Eddie will jump in a pack situation, and that's when we want him to stay down. I thought Sauce had a really good game as well, not only in the hit-out department, but I thought around the ground he was really good, had 13 touches, 5 marks, had the 40 hit-outs, 3 tackles, and I reckon those 3 tackles were all in the one play. I just felt like he was a presence around the ground. He worked forward and snuck that goal in as well. Probably could have had 2 if he'd have snapped truly. So I reckon it was a good game from Sauce, particularly under the conditions.
Good game, and he's had a good year. I don't know that he's had a really bad one at all this year. I think he's done a very, very good job.
Probably one of the funniest goal celebrations.
It was almost apologetic.
Yeah, it was just the little wipe across the brow of like, oh, Dunstall's not going to have a go at me.
Yeah, well, he burnt someone by having a crack. I can't remember who was off to the side there that he could have laid off to.
Well, Eddie actually could have passed to him at one stage because that was so funny, that roving goal from Eddie. Sauce was the one who saw it was happening and he was actually leading the pack to start off with.
I reckon Charlie Cameron, I reckon he burnt.
Yeah, and speaking of Charlie, only the 13 touches, 2 marks, 3 goals, 4 tackles. It's the kind of game, though, that we want from Charlie because if he's only going to pick up 13 touches, you want them to count. And I thought his impact was very good, and his I'm not going to say non-statistical, but his non-disposal type work, his chasing and his tackling and his harassing was excellent as well, and he was instrumental in our forward pressure and being able to keep the ball inside our forward 50.
Yeah, you summed it up well there.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, he was so good in that game.
And I've got to say, and I've seen this guy play a couple of times, but not at AFL level. He only got 11 touches, but by Christ, Hugh Greenwood, he excites me. There's some work he does in traffic that I was able to see up close, and some work below his knees, and one taking the ball. It's just like, my boy, he's got some tricks.
That handball?
Yeah.
The just between, I think there were 2 or 3 Fremantle players. It was a little low bullet of a handball straight through. They were just kind of, where did that come from?
Yeah, there was a couple of takes at Grant right on his toes that he took in traffic as well.
He would have played in some shock on whether you would think as a junior in Tasmania.
Yeah, 6 tackles from the boy as well, and while it wasn't a dominant game, I thought it was a good game, and it certainly justifies his selection again for next week.
Well,
did Pike call him influential?
Well, and that would be a fair call too.
I think he did actually. No, I liked his game. Maybe a few more possessions, but he was doing the get down and get dirty stuff.
Well, he was only on ground for 60% of the time, by far our lowest time on ground. Obviously, they're working into it, and I thought in the last quarter there, he looked like he'd blown out a bit. There was a chase, one of their goals. Yeah. There was a chase, and he couldn't really raise a gallop. And that was quite early in the last, and I thought, oh yeah, you're just about done. But 10 contested posies out of those 11 disposals, and a 72% disposal efficiency. He just looks clean. He looks poised, and he's got a little bit of power about him as well. And we compared him to blokes like Pendlebury and Bontempelli, and I don't think that's too out of place.
The tackle on Fife.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Fife had no idea he was coming. And that's what we've seen in the SNFL, particularly in the final series, that he just seemed to come out of nowhere. He just times it beautifully.
Yep. The only brickbats, really, I thought Richie Douglas was fairly unobtrusive, I should say. Had 19 disposals, but I didn't really notice him much.
He was handy. no dominance, but hanging.
Yeah, did his job.
Yeah, inconspicuous, I guess. David McKay, contentious selection. I don't harp on about it, but I don't think he did any more than Jordan Gallucci would have done.
No, Gallucci would not have been able to tag Hill on the wing, which was his job. That's what he was brought in to do. That's what he did, and he stopped him.
Yeah, look, I know. I didn't.
Gallucci would not have been able to do that.
I didn't support the inclusion of McKay in the side, but having said that, I have to agree with Nicky. I thought he did his job.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wondered why he was coming back in. I thought, for me, the only reason was his flexibility. And then being there at the game and watching what he was doing, every time Hill was on, pretty much when Hill was on, he was on that
Hill, you're
wing.
talking about?
Yeah, on that wing. He was there to shut him down because that's where they get their run from. That first quarter, they kept, when they did get the ball and they were looking outside for him, McKay was on his hammer the whole time. They couldn't get it to him. Or if they did, it was under pressure, ball up, and they had to stop using him. And they didn't know what to do.
It's interesting. Here, in comparison of the stats, Dave McKay, 13 kicks, 4 marks, 4 handballs, sorry. Stephen Hill, 13 kicks, 4 handballs. David McKay, 2 marks, 3 tackles. Stephen Hill, 1 mark, 1 tackle. David McKay, 4 contested at 58.8. Stephen Hill, 5 contested at 58.8. They just cancelled each other out.
They did.
They were
And that's
waxing,
perfectly
man.
fine.
It might have been waxing. Who knows?
Yeah, just think it was. Do you think Freo might have got close if we hadn't have tagged Stephen Hill with Dave McKay?
No, but
I think they definitely would have got closer than what they did.
Yeah, but I think we've got to take our prejudices away because I wouldn't have had him in the side, and I would have had Gallucci in the side. So I'll preface it by saying that. But having said that, he was in the side, and I think that he did a reasonably good job. So somebody must teach him though that when you kick on the run, you don't have your toe point up and balloon the ball high in the air. You actually you point your toe and you'll kick it long and lower.
Yeah, how long have we been saying that, Macca? We should be down there teaching them how to kick. Now, Valise on the chat is having an absolute spastic.
I know.
And
He did
I'd just
tag
like
him.
to say, settle down. We're trying to be objective. We don't have to continually bag someone who can't defend themselves. Both Nicky and I were at the game. I don't know whether you were at the game, Valise, but we were both at the game. We both saw similar things. Was it D-Mac's best game? Absolutely not.
Nope.
Do I think he should have been selected? Probably not. I wouldn't have selected him personally. I don't think you bring someone in after having dropped them on performance. But it wasn't his worst game. It was a typical David McKay game, and that's really all there is to say about it. There's no need to go carrying on the chat as if we've just said something like Donald Trump's a good president or something like that.
God, no, nobody says that.
Be quiet about the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
A friend of mine used that the other day, and I'm just like, that is the best thing. I'm going to call him that from now on.
Yeah. And finally, Tex. Don't know.
Oh, what a
Don't know what
shocker!
to make of that one.
What a shocker! Gee whiz, he's a top footballer. Don't get me wrong, and everybody has bad days. He had a stinker.
They've really had it in for him over the past couple of weeks regarding some of those frees. That other players will do it, not a problem. That's a play on. He does it, automatically free against.
Yeah, but he's getting into this bad habit of being behind.
He's not getting into it, Macca. He is deep in it.
Yeah.
Has been for the last 4 weeks. Has hardly led his defender to the contest at all. The only time he's been able to take a mark on the lead is when he's basically had a mismatch or he's lost his opponent in traffic. But I know he gets heavily looked after, but it was a genuine one-on-one contest between him and Johnson, and he got towed up.
He did take Johnson away at times, which freed up Jenkins. because Johnson is very good. He's their one decent defender they do have, to be fair. Fremantle don't have a good defence, and he's it. So he actually has been very good in like their little run that they've had. He can take a player, but he also knows how to leave them.
Yeah. The problem is with Tex, I understand that occasionally leaves a player away and we've got our forward structures and all that
but
sort
he
of
needs
stuff.
to do more.
But it's when he's actually in the contest that he's disappointing me. His attempts to mark disappoint me. He's laconic. I don't think... Put it this way, if Josh Jenkins was putting up performances like that, we'd be hammering him. And Tex gets away with a bit, I think, because of his stature within our club and because he's captain and his persona and all the rest of it. But there's no denying it that he's in a bit of a slump now, and there's no better time than the big stage next Friday night to correct it.
See, I thought he'd turned a corner a little bit, the game against the Gold Coast. He was moving so much freer, and we made that point after that game. But, yeah, he's been flat.
He didn't have a Stephen Mays on him either, did he?
No. Not quite sure. He still looks heavy to me. He looks heavy around the midriff.
Looks sluggish.
Yeah, he looks heavy-legged. He doesn't move freely. He's he's never been the most athletic guy going around, but he just doesn't seem to move freely to me, and which is fine. But then he's got to do the things that are within his capabilities well. And at the moment, he's not leading hard. He's not one grabbing the ball. He's not going up with two hands in contested situations, and he's kicking lazily. That first effort on goal where he just about did a Dixon because he was rubbing the ball with a towel. Well, that was just lairising, really. Go back and kick the bloody ball, Tex. Something's not right with Taylor at the moment. I'm not sure what it is.
I wonder whether he might be carrying an injury or something. Because he just isn't moving like he was.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
And a player that hasn't been mentioned, Luke Brown, I thought I'd hate to stand him. I would hate to stand him. I wouldn't get a kick.
Yeah. Anyway, such is life. It was a great win. I don't think it necessarily proved much. I thought Fremantle's effort was fairly insipid. I don't think that they looked terribly switched on. They do have a good first rotation in the midfield, and that's where they lost the game, really. So irrespective of their quality at either ends of the ground, I didn't think that they applied themselves terribly well where it mattered at the coalface. But you can only do the best that you can do with what's in front of you, Macca and Nicky, and I felt like the best part about the win was the fact that we played for 4 quarters. We didn't relent. We straight-lined the ball. We hit the contest hard. We got in and under, and as we pointed out at the beginning of the show, handled and used the ball particularly well.
Well, the one thing, we did play very, very well because even though it was a thrash match, they had 3 players that looked as if they might even be remotely AFL quality, and that was Fife, Weller and Blakely. They are the only 3 that probably could say that they did something towards their sides, whatever progress they did make for the night. And I think the way that we played, we suffocated them so badly that we made the rest of them look like hacks.
And Valois just gets banned from the chat. Seriously, if you can't just restrain yourself a little bit on the chat and not use language and all the rest of it, you're not the only one there. You were asked nicely to pull your head in, so see you later. Anyway, final words, because what are we about? We're about 54 minutes in. We might actually finish before the hour, Nick.
Oh my God. I equated it not quite in terms of actually it was a little bit like the GWS game at the start of the year, because we really did put in that pressure from the start. They actually had a bit of free-flowing play, but the pressure we then put on them, that just made them turn to water. And like you just said, putting the foot to the throat was really pleasing to see.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nicky. I thought we choked the life out of them. We didn't give them we just stifled them. Maybe we didn't even let them get started, and so they were just struggling to even try and play football all night. And I thought that it was one of our better efforts because it was maintained much longer than normal too.
Yeah. I guess what I noticed is that the Fremantle dropped off very quickly when it was apparent that we were going to match them in physicality and intensity. And I think that allowed us to get on top very quickly because once it became apparent that Fremantle weren't going to put up much of a fight, then, away we went. We're not going to get that next week. We've got two of the better midfielders going around coming up against us at their home ground with that nice big stand influencing umpires. So you can expect Joel Selwood to be at his ducking best. So we need to be able to bring that intensity for 4 quarters when it's being matched by the opposition. Geelong will bring that sort of heat for 4 quarters, plus they do have some quality at either end of the ground. So for me, the two things out of this game is intensity was excellent, but as I said, there is an asterisk, and for next week, we need to A, bring the same level of intensity, and B, we need to show that we've come up with something different apart from kick it to their flooded backline.
Yeah, next week is the test. It is a test because although Geelong aren't necessarily the best team in the competition, they are one of the best teams in the competition, and we're playing at a ground that A, doesn't suit our style very much because it's narrower, and therefore it makes it a lot easier for them to choke us in reverse, and they also know our game style and they have their ways of stopping it. Their crowd is intense, and I think it's one of the most uneducated crowds I've ever seen anywhere because all they know is the fact that it's a Geelong free kick no matter what happens.
Have you been to a Crows game, Macca? Or a West Coast game or anything
Port
like that?
Games. Port games.
No, I've been to all of those actually, but no, I think it's almost on a par with Port. Port Adelaide know no other than that either, and I half respect them for that because you've got to be biased.
Yeah, you're there to support your team, mate. I have no problem with them doing it.
Yeah, but it is. I think it's one of the most ferocious grounds to go to, and as I say, they're a good team, and they have a very good midfield. They do have some ability at each end, and so they have some. They have some good players dotted all around the ground. So this will tell us a lot about us. If we win this game, in fact, if we even came away with the same result that Port Adelaide did, I would think that says yes, you're a premiership contender. Whereas, and I'd like to win it. Don't get me wrong, because I think. Technically, Port Adelaide should have won that game, but they didn't, of course. But I think it's a big test for us.
Yeah, look, I remember how we were saying earlier in the season or a few games back, that how often do you see the Crows lose where it's come down to the wire and they've just been beaten by a better team on the night, and we're saying it doesn't actually happen very often. I'd be happy with that level of result against Geelong because it is a difficult game to win. If we match them for 4 quarters and lose in a similar manner to Port Adelaide, then I won't be overly disappointed. What I will say, though, is I think that we're a better team than Port Adelaide. And,
yep.
Geelong struggled to overcome them, and wasn't it, if it wasn't for a bit of a brain fade towards the end, and not only that, but a lucky kick, because 9 times out of 10 that snap from Dangerfield gets touched. They would have lost that game, Geelong. So we should go in with a lot of confidence. We should go in with a lot of belief after playing so well on Saturday night, notwithstanding the opponent. So there's really no excuses. It's Friday night on a big stage. This is where we get to show our mettle and our worth as the premiership leader, and they should hit the ground running on Friday night.
The one thing they do have an advantage is they've got an 8-day rest, and we've got
6.
6. Yeah,
I don't think it matters.
Okay, we'll see.
No, they actually look tired.
There's plenty of examples of shorter or longer breaks not really making too much of a difference. In fact, there's a school of thought that the less break the better, because you're still in that mode. You haven't come off. I don't think that matters, Macca. I think there's no excuses on Friday night.
Oh, I'm not. Certainly not presenting any excuse. I'm just saying this is going to be a hard, tough game, and I don't think that makes it any easier for us. Put it that way.
What do you reckon, Nick?
Yeah, for me, oh my God, do I want to win this game? And I said this earlier. I thought we'd set ourselves for the Hawthorn game. We got over one bogey, and I thought we were setting ourselves for this game.
Well, certainly as a supporter base, I think we have been. I think everything else is just about being a sideshow. We ticked off the Hawthorn match, and as you say, the next one was Geelong.
But to me, that's also it's a mental hurdle the players themselves have to get over.
Yep.
I agree.
If we're going to take that further step, we need to win.
Well,
and I think we're good enough to win.
Carl on Big Footy would call it a signpost game. I'm not going to endorse those comments. But it's certainly an important one. And, it's these sort of games that give you confidence towards finals and getting over the Cats in Geelong. And if we do get over the Cats in Geelong, we need to follow it up the following week, which is our last game before the bye against St Kilda at home. So, because how often do you win a hard one and then drop an easy one the next week? So 2 wins before the bye, and would be going pretty well, I reckon.
Now, even if we could win this game, in my opinion, Geelong are at least a 5-goal better team playing in at this particular stadium. So if we beat Geelong there, we'll beat them anywhere. To me, I still think our main rivals for a flag are GWS. Who are performing, I think, very well considering the number of players they've got out. Geelong, at this stage, have to be included in there, although if it's not played here and it's played elsewhere, then I don't fear them as much. And I know the Victorians keep throwing up the Bulldogs, but I'm not sure about that.
I just think it's far too early to tell, Macca.
Yeah.
Particularly this year.
The season's too even.
Oh, correct. I agree, but I'm just talking about at this stage.
Certainly at this stage, you would think that GWS are the main threat, and a lot of every other even GWS, the whole top 8 have been topsy-turvy. In fact, you could make a case for Port being the most consistent of the lot, and their percentage probably bears it out. But on the other hand, Port haven't really beaten anyone of any great note yet. So it's wide open, but we win the 2 games going into the bye, and you could just about say that we've got a top 4 spot wrapped up, and then you could start talking about top 2. So 2 important games, and splitting them would be good. Winning them both would be better.
I think you said one of the listeners said it was a signpost game.
Yeah, don't go
there.
Don't
do that, Macca.
Don't go there.
In some ways, it is.
Oh, Jesus! I'll ban you as well, mate. I'm going to ban you. Do you know this is the first time I've banned someone from chat? So Villa should be happy that he's the first. He's the first. So I might let him back in next week.
And we just end on that Freo note that this was actually the 250th game coached by Ross Lyon. He has never been beaten by 100 points or more.
No. He has now.
Very satisfying against the league's most defensive coach. On that note, I reckon we'll leave it there. Keep an eye out for the Crowbars podcast, which will hit Spreaker probably tomorrow. And then, of course, we've got Tuesday Night Live with Peter J on Tuesday night, surprisingly enough. And Scorpus back for the teams and previews on Thursday. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at AFL Crowcast.
And if McKay's still in, he's going to melt.
Oh, Wow. Did you hear?
No, I was scared to listen.
He was so spewing that he had me on mute by mistake, so the first 5 minutes is just him ranting followed by silence.
Probably a perfect timing then.
It was fantastic. All right, Macca, Nikki, thanks very much for joining me tonight.
I'm off to make some cookies now.
I won't be doing that. No, anyway, it was a pleasure.
Best wishes to Mrs. Macca, who's not feeling too well, and we will see you on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live.
No.
See you then. Bye.